Happy late summer Thursday, everyone. It's really nice to see so many of you online and joining us. And again, it's been wonderful to see how many folks are actually participating, sending me notes, posting comments, likes, actually viewing a lot of the YouTube videos, the Facebook videos, and the videos on Instagram. Thank you guys for all of your support and for allowing me to interview some of our candidates for Congressional District 17, which will be one of the most competitive congressional districts in the country come next November. Today, we'll be talking with Jeremy Saland, returning to talk about defending the rule of law. And as you've requested, my first question for him is going to be, is he going to throw his hat in the ring? From the Democratic forums earlier this summer, interest has persisted, and the questions have persisted about whether Jeremy will eventually throw his hat into the ring here. For those I haven't had the chance to meet before, hi, I'm Kevin. I'm a husband, father of 3, a Bedford resident, a lifelong Democrat, a state health policy expert, a good government advocate, and as of a few weeks back, now a dog owner, which has been crazy, which is why you'll only see this square box of my house, because it's a disaster. It is just, there is nothing is in order right now. But it's wonderful to see you, and thank you again for joining. I hope you all have wonderful Labor Day plans, and for those it applies to, excited about getting ready to go back to school for kids. Just a reminder, our purpose here and for these live streams is to engage New Yorkers living in northern Westchester, Rockland County, Putnam County, and southern Dutchess County, collectively New York 17, in the political process, equipping our community with information about the issues impacting our families, our households, and our businesses to help us identify the best person to represent our interests in 2026. We're doing this by discussing the issues, bringing you facts every week when we gather, fostering community, and most relevantly for today's conversation, introducing the candidates, the people that you may wish to represent us, and as a Democratic contender next year to go up against Congressman Mike Lawler next fall. This is the people's primary, and I would really encourage you. There are going to be, especially over the course of the fall, a ton of endorsements coming out for various candidates. We've already seen a forced focusing of the field by the Westchester County Democratic Committee, selecting 4 candidates nearly 10 months out from the Democratic primary to participate in a forum in September. I think that it's still pretty early, and I would really hope that everyone who's watching this really thinks about, like, who is their candidate, or who are their candidates right now that they would like to learn more about and support. Again, the strongest candidate that comes out next June will be the one that we all collectively believe is the one best suited to beat Mike Lawler. I've had the pleasure of meeting all of the candidates, and I can tell you there's we have a wealth of options, and regardless of who wins, everyone is going to be all in for the candidate. I also want to remind us, it's been about 2 months now since from my invitation to Mr. Lawler and his communications team and the correspondence we had. I welcome him to come on to actually defend his vote on the One Big Beautiful Bill. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe there's something we're all missing and why he voted the way he voted, and also why he's not standing up to the daily attacks that President Trump is engaging in our national institutions, from firing the Bureau of Labor Statistics director to just yesterday firing the director of the CDC. There's so much that he could be speaking up for and defending our interests around that he just chooses not to. Why? I'd love to hear his position on these issues, and I invite him again, and I will invite him every single time we get together until he decides he would like to actually talk to his constituents. Once again, I offer you a challenge. The first is to get involved. The path to November 2026 starts today. We have a large, expansive district, and now is the time to get engaged with your local community and your local Democratic committees. There are a number. across the district. And again, I promise after our conversation with Jessica next Saturday, I'm going to post all of this contact information online in a centralized resource so everyone can access it. But across northern Westchester, towns, cities, and villages, there are opportunities to get involved in your local committees. Putnam County, if you don't know who to contact, you could always contact Jennifer Calamonico, who can direct you to the right town or the right person to help you get involved in your local community. Kent, Patterson, Phillipstown, Putnam Valley, Southeast, Carmel. They're wonderful organizations and groups that are doing great work for local candidates. And it's never more important, not only to get engaged for 2026, but to get engaged for 2025 right now. Congressman Lawler is actively engaged in local races, which are up in November 2025. Get out, get involved, support your local candidates. This week, I also added a few contacts in Putnam County, and then we'll close out the series next week with some in Rockland. If you don't know who to contact, just reach out to me, and I'll get you someone to contact. kevinfornewyork@gmail.com. The most important thing is to get involved. Second challenge, find your candidates. There are 7, actually there are technically 8, and we'll talk about that another time, declared candidates right now. And Jeremy, if you're interested in learning more about them, get in touch with them. They're all incredibly responsive to emails. Their campaigns are up and running, and they're taking hours out of their life every single day to actually put themselves forward to hopefully represent you. Reach out. Know your stuff. Stick to the facts. It works, and it makes for the most compelling, persistent, long-lasting arguments. And finally, stay positive. Again, we're all here for the same fight, and it's going to be a big one. Again, any of the candidates we'd be lucky to have as our nominee. And with that, I'd love to introduce Jeremy Saland. Jeremy started his career in New York City's criminal justice system, serving as an assistant district attorney in the trial division of Robert Morgenthau's Manhattan District Attorney's Office before starting his own practice. If you want to hear more about that adventure, I'd encourage you to look back at our last interview. It was really pretty wonderful to hear about those days. As the founding member of Saland Law, Jeremy is a criminal defense attorney, Title IX advisor representing students and faculty, a family court Article 8 order of protection lawyer, and a counsel to both adults and children facing sextortion. After serving as new Castle Town Prosecutor for 6 years, Jeremy was elected as a council member in 2015. He presently serves as Deputy Supervisor and served as Newcastle's acting supervisor during the height of the COVID pandemic. Jeremy has appeared over 600 times in national networks from CNN and NBC to Fox 5 to New York 1. I actually think that number is probably outdated because it's about 2 months old. And I've seen Jeremy on the television more like a fair amount between then and now, mostly because people really care about what he has to say. And he always delivers really smart, pointed insights on the topics of the day and what is going on at the federal and state levels. He shares his experience on legal matters, including President Trump's trials, and he also has spoken widely about Sean Combs RICO conspiracy case. Jeremy has lived in Newcastle since 2006, where he and his wife have raised their 3 sons. He's a Hudson Valley native from Poughkeepsie. He's the son of former Republican State Senator Steve Saland, a legislator who bucked his party to cast a deciding vote for marriage equality in New York State. And of course, that is a tough act to follow. Jeremy?
Indeed it is. Indeed it is.
It's so nice to see you.
You as well. You as well. And yes, that number has gone through the roof. And as bad as it is, all the things that Donald Trump does, it gives a lot of opportunity for people who know the law and care about the law to address all his missteps, even though they are in fact intentional, not accidental missteps.
Yeah, and he's watching.
He is. And you know what? Before you go into your question, I was asked something the other day on CNN, and it was in reference to, with reference to John Bolton having a search warrant executed at his home, and he speaks out against the president, and he's spoken out against other presidents too. And it's not just he's an equal opportunity challenger, if you will, whether I like him or not.
Mhm.
And my response was, it's frightening because it really puts that sort of damper on, and I'm being generous here because it's
Mhm.
more of a slam down on people who want to speak out and say this isn't right, or have concerns, or want to challenge and want to call out the administration. Are they going to be on your phone? Are you going to get in trouble? Are you going to get arrested? Is the IRS going to audit you? It's frightening for the press. It's frightening for people who are in leadership and political positions. It's frightening and scary for people just like you or me who just want to share their thoughts and do so vocally. This is a new world we live in, but I don't want to go down that road, but it's a scary one. So there's been plenty of opportunities, unfortunately, to address this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, folks have been asking me over the past couple of months, like, what's different this time? Because we've been talking about this this threat to democracy, honestly, for a while now. Like, what have I seen that's different? And for me, it comes down to a sense of real fear.
Yeah.
I've been doing interviews for Academy Health, a national organization that brings together scholars, researchers, health policy experts. And one of the interviews that I was doing was with a researcher who was researching LGBTQ issues. He and they were supposed to be a panel of folks. Two dropped out because their institutions feared retribution, their academic institutions. And this third gentleman came on, Dr. Streed, and he was phenomenal. And both he and his institution believed that the issue was too important not to be able to speak to it. And this is just about data and facts, but fear has been something that's been creeping in. I don't know if that resonates with you.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And, I have a friend of mine who I was a prosecutor with, and he went on to the Department of Justice, and I wouldn't share his information. It was part of the story, but he would speak a lot about the issues that were pending in the news that were of import in terms of the law. And at some point, his firm, a international firm, a very large, respected firm, pulled the plug because they did not want to disrupt the commander in chief in terms of, this is actually before he was elected.
Yeah.
In terms of if and when he were to get elected, they did not want to see the ramifications, though, which is quite rich considering many law firms have buckled, to that pressure. But it's real. Whether you're affluent and you have power and access to money and people, or you're just a regular person on the street. It's terrifying. And we can address this more. I'm happy to answer questions as we go through some of the rule of law issues, but I don't want to steal the show and go down that pit now.
And I promise people, like, the first question I will ask, and this is the first official question are you running? Are you running, Jeremy?
Right. So I've gotten that question a lot, and I've gotten calls from more than a few people, and I don't say that in a Trump way where he just makes up a number so you can think it, but more than a few people offering to help, wanting to know what I want to do and what my plan is. Without going into detail, I have been in conversation with another attorney to I'll use the term take over. That's not the right term, but to really pull into my firm, because I am now a sole practitioner. I used to have 4 folks in my firm, including my former partner, who's now a commissioner in New York City. So it's just me as a solo, and it's just not plausible. And I've given myself a deadline, really towards the end of September, early October, because if I can't figure it out by then and make it work, even if it's going to work later on, it's going to be too late to catch up. But it is an absolute, sincere, and very real effort on my part to move forward with this. I believe that we have a lot of good candidates, and in no way would I say anything bad about any one of them. I think all of them deserve an opportunity and can and should beat Mike Lawler. But I think that, let me rephrase that. I know that with my experience in terms of local government, growing up around government, being actively involved in government, being in that courtroom with regularity in those trenches, understanding the law, and being someone who can articulate and respond on the fly and be prepared and ready to go. And confront Mike Lawler with his failings and how it impacts our community, meaning Westchester, Putnam, Rockland, Dutchess, and well beyond. There's nobody that can do it as well as me. But again, to be very clear, I think there's overwhelmingly positive, very strong candidates who are in this field who will do the same thing.
And so early October, and maybe if you make a decision, you'll come back on and we'll get to talk about it either way.
Absolutely. I cannot stress enough, Kevin.
Yeah.
I have so many balls in the air, like we all do.
Yeah.
I've got my own family. I've got two
Yeah.
kids in college. I have my own law firm. I'm involved in town government.
Yeah.
As you know, I like to get outside and go
Yeah.
canyoneering and climbing
Yeah.
mountains. I've got so many balls in the air. I don't have the time to waste my time or other people's time to do this, but I can assure you that I've been speaking with somebody, and I've spoken with other people in terms of professionals about what that would look like to step in. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of family first. It is what it is.
Absolutely. It is what it is. And you also mentioned, like, if you do get in, it would be to address many of the failures of our congressmen and actually representing the values and issues of import to our district. Like, what are those issues that you've been hearing from friends, family, folks that have been reaching out to you, asking if you get into the race to represent them?
Well, I'll talk first about, I think, the bigger piece, and then I'll break it down a little bit before I go into the rule of law, because I do think that is so impactful, and everything comes from the rule of law and the Constitution. That's where it all is, the foundation, and stems from. But I think about the big, beautiful bill, and I think about, I went to Mike Lawler's website just before I came on, just to sort of peruse it to see what his latest was in the past 24 to 48 hours. And he mentions discussing about working with SNAP and preserving SNAP to some extent. But what's really, and Social Security office.
Come on.
So my point being is, this is the forest from the trees, but you can't say you're doing something to protect, for example, SNAP, Medicare, Medicaid, student loan opportunity to go into school and have reasonable costs to do so. You can't say you're doing that when you're stripping those same people who need it most and tearing it down. You're putting a Band-Aid, and it's not really even a Band-Aid, but on a hemorrhaging head wound for the nation. So it's completely disingenuous. And as I think that's a big issue for a lot of people. And I see at least the college issue right now for people who want to better themselves. And I'm not just talking college. It could be a trade. It could be something else. It doesn't have to be a traditional 4-year school. It could be Westchester or Dutchess or community college, for example. So those dollars have to come from somewhere. And if you have to make it up for healthcare, if you have to make it up, because eventually the inflation is going to get worse with what we're doing with other nations and 40% tariff here, 10% tariff here. It's going to come home
or taxes.
So all of this is really a concern, no matter where you fall on an economic bracket. Granted, it's more difficult for someone on the lower end. So that is something that I hear a lot of. Things aren't getting cheaper.
No.
That being said, what I see a lot of in terms of my professional capacity, which sometimes doesn't resonate as much because people have to deal with their day-to-day, is that rule of law. And I think to that point, Kevin, we just saw this again, another mass shooting. We saw, children die and adults hurt and die. I mean, it's in a church. It's just never acceptable. Prayers ain't going to cut it. It's not going to work. And one of the things that I have railed against, this was both, when Murphy was a state senator locally for our residents, partially in this district, is gun laws that are reasonable. I have looked through that website of Lawler. I see nothing about the Constitutional Concealed Carry Act. And for those who do not know, the Constitutional Concealed Carry Act is what the Republican majority, and Trump very well may sign if it gets that far, would basically strip down the state's ability to limit that concealed carry as long as it's lawfully obtained in state one. So we could have our good friends from Texas and Florida with that gun on their hip and holster. And that's not to say that you're a bad person if you believe in the Second Amendment at all. But they could be on our subways. They could be on our buses going through Westchester County. They could be in our shopping malls, because if it's okay in Texas and Florida, it's going to be okay here. That is beyond frightening and very real in terms of what the consequences can be. And where is Lawler on this? Well, we know where he is, because you look when he was an assemblyman, back when the governor tried to limit the ability to have certain concealed carry in certain locations, like Times Square, for example. I don't know if you recall the legislation that was passed. One of the things that he said is, well, it may allow access to getting easier to get a concealed carry, but you're not going to be able to carry your guns anywhere. In substance, that's what he said. And you can Google it. It's quoted in an article that I had been reading. Well, I think that's a good thing if you can't carry or conceal carry in many places. But that's not who Michael Lawler is. So in other words, you could come into this state with a firearm that's loaded, and you could have that legally in the state of Texas, Illinois, wherever, it doesn't make a difference, Florida, Alabama, and you're bent on committing a domestic violence crime or any crime. And you know what? You have a right to carry it. And ain't nothing going to happen. That's frightening. That is frightening. We don't need more guns in New York. Period.
I'm just asking for a congressman that's really interested in representing our values than the party leadership from states like Texas and Louisiana, who have Speaker Johnson, obviously, who pushed and passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and all of which penalize New York and really disregards what we value.
It's a scary thing, and Mike Lawler tries to present himself as the most bipartisan, or one of the most bipartisan people in Congress. You have to really dig deep into what he's bipartisan about. I mean, we can all agree on a bill that honors somebody as a Republican and a Democrat, right? Or gets some money to some local fund for something, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking the big picture and the principles that we believe in. If you believe in a woman's right to choose access to health care, reasonable, rates in terms of, we discussed before very, very briefly about going to college and loans. The big, beautiful bill ain't helping the people of New York 17.
It isn't. And so you mentioned like the threats to the rule of law. What do you see as the threats to the rule of law?
Donald Trump attacks the judiciary. Mike Lawler is silent. Alina Habba and Sarcone, is it John Sarcone? I think his name is, if I'm saying it wrong. It's respectively District of New Jersey, Acting U.S. Attorney, and Northern District of New York. I won't bore anybody, but he appointed them as in their temporary positions. And then the Senate has to confirm, which they didn't. And mind you, he railed against his own party for the blue slip, which basically someone in that state, a senator, can really ding that potential candidate and prevent that candidate from sitting as a U.S. attorney. And because Trump is upset that he has a right, not really, he has a right to say, but not a right to actually make it happen. He's going after certain people in his own party to say, why are you blocking me to put the people I want to put in there? But back to Habba and Sarcone, they serve their temporary term. And then after that, if there's not an appointment, the district court judges in that district, in that state, can say who they appoint to be the acting. So when they did not reappoint Habba and Sarcone, what did Trump do? He then, again, circumvents the law, like a little bit of a snake action. And what he does is says, I'm going to put you in a different position and then elevate you to acting. There was a woman who was the number one in New Jersey. He fired her and then put Habba as the number one in New Jersey, the first deputy. And then she elevated to acting. So these are really important things. You don't realize that, but that's incredibly important.
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. But like, could you break it down to how that actually can impact our lives? Like this circumvention of like precedent and procedure and process.
So this is just really an example of his ongoing process, and why I'm tying it back to Mike Lawler, because Mike Lawler is not Donald Trump, at least not literally.
He's an enabler.
Mike Lawler is silent.
Yeah.
So when Lisa Cook from the governor, from the federal board of governors for the Federal Reserve, is accused of a mortgage fraud, true or not, she certainly hasn't been convicted or charged. Mike Lawler is silent. When Powell is attacked, Mike Lawler is silent. So when you try to fire someone for cause who you should not, who has an impact on interest rates and other things in the federal government in terms of the financial policy, Mike Lawler is silent. That all impacts our lives. When I don't want to go down this road too much, but when you have Todd Blanche, your personal attorney, going to speak with an accomplice who was involved in the predatory sexual abuse of children, to speak to him, when you have the ability to say, let me just release the files in terms of what was in the Epstein files, but you send your own personal attorney, you are using your power to benefit yourself. You're using your power to benefit your financial interests. You're using that power to go after your enemies. We briefly discussed Bolton. We look at what he's doing in DC and what he did in LA, and then some. What do I mean? Why is the National Guard coming into our cities? Why is the National Guard a domestic civil police force. Why is Mike Lawler? I mean,
Silent.
is he not smart enough to realize that eventually Trump will come for him when he steps the wrong way? When President Trump declares that we're going to seek the death penalty for everyone across the board on all murders, where is Mike Lawler?
Mm-hmm.
Now, most of us aren't involved in murders. I get that. Most of us don't have issues before the United States Supreme Court or have to worry about the Fed directly. But you led too with the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the head being fired because those statistics did not meet what Donald Trump wanted those statistics to be. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Let's just call it what it is.
It is.
It's bullshit and it's scary. And if you can't stand up, you don't have to get on your damn tippy toes. You don't have to get on a soapbox. Stand up and say, Mr. President, not okay because you're afraid. Then you have no place in our government in Congress. Period. No asterisk.
Yeah. And I mean, just to follow on that with that example, for BLS produces labor statistics, unemployment rates, like to show you, the viewers, like what we've already lost by this incident. Let's say the new numbers come out next month and they're really positive, robust. How many of us are going to be like, are those really robust, or is there now undue influence? And that's where we start to lose like the sense of truth and faith in government. Whether you're pursuing a conservative government or a liberal government, I think everyone should be concerned.
Yeah, I think that's a completely accurate and fair statement. I'm at a place, and I talked about this a lot during the Trump trial, where I repeatedly said, if you do not believe in the rule of law and due process, that Donald Trump is innocent until if and when pleaded, guilty, proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, then you are part of the problem. Your dislike and even loathing for someone does not dictate whether guilt or innocence. But ultimately, he was found guilty. My fear was that everything he said outside that courtroom dismantled, dismembered trust in the judicial system. And it's been exacerbated by his constant attack on the judiciary.
Yeah.
And prosecutors who have been fired or left.
Yeah.
But if you can't believe in and trust the statistics, you can't govern properly as a state, local, or federal official because you don't know what numbers are real. If you can't believe in the rule of law, then you don't know if an indictment is real. And that's scary that even someone like me who really firmly wants to believe in the rule of law, who makes a concerted effort to take off my glasses and say it's not red or blue, I'm going to listen to the evidence, whether you like my decision or not. It's scary because now I'm questioning it. And if I'm questioning it, other people have to be questioning it too. I'm not smarter or better than anyone else, but if I'm questioning it, other people are questioning it too. You'll look at, I think it was a judge out of Maryland who may have been a Trump. He was a Republican, although I don't know if he was a Trump appointee. Trump administration is going after the judge, basically saying you don't have the ability and the right to stop the deportation or removal proceeding. But again, we don't hear anything from Lawler. What we did hear from Lawler, and thankfully, to his credit, even if it's this big, to his credit, there was a woman, last name Go, I think it is, from Scarsdale, an Asian woman who may have overstayed her visa, and she was taken into custody. And I'm admittedly not familiar with everything in terms of why she was taken into custody, how she got targeted. But the fact that if you believe what he says, he helped her, and that's terrific. He should be helping people who need help, and he should be applauded for that. But that applaud only goes so far, and it's not just when it benefits you as a legislator, as an elected official. What is he doing to ensure that people like Go and people who don't have access and don't have money, and I'm not saying she did or didn't, I don't know her situation, are being sent to foreign countries, are being held without any type of rights, or may get sucked up when they shouldn't be there in the first place. As cute as Alligator Alley, Alcatraz sounds, what are you doing, Mike Lawler? Peruse his website about all his press releases. He'll tell you about Cuomo messing up with COVID in the nursing homes. Okay, sure. Yeah. He'll complain about redistricting because it hurts him with Hochul, but not about what's happening in Texas. And add it there. He may, I don't know if he's going to go after Lisa Cook in terms of this alleged mortgage fraud. He's probably gone after our attorney general. But for those who don't know, Ken Paxton, who's the attorney general for Texas, I think he's got an issue with 3 of them. And he's been challenged, or it's been an issue that he's sort of ignored about his mortgages on 3 private residences. So if you're going to
And this
do
is
it,
Ken
do it.
Paxton, who's requiring or proposing to require that the Bible verses are in every school in the state.
Yeah, I mean, Ken Paxton doesn't stand for anything but Ken Paxton, like Mike Lawler stands for Mike Lawler. I'll say it again. You should be okay to say to Mike Lawler, thank you for helping Ms. Go, as an example. I don't want to put too much on her, but he's doing the right thing, and we should be grateful that he's doing the right thing. But you don't do the right thing when it's convenient or easy. And that's one of the things my father told me, when he voted for marriage equality. You don't do it because it's easy. You do it because it's right. And if you get kicked in the ass, as my chief used to say, if you get your teeth kicked in, you get your teeth kicked in.
Yeah.
But you're doing it because it's right. And that's a big problem.
And you mentioned like the rule of law is foundational to all of our systems, whether it's private property, whether it's our civic rights, whether it's immigration policy, and whether it's actually followed, public safety. I mean, there's so many implications. Like, do you feel like the integrity of our courts is now in real jeopardy?
When someone gets appointed to the Court of Appeals, Bove, I always mess up. I always messed up his name. No matter how many times I've said it, I miss it. One of those things I can never
I'm sure
say.
he'll forgive you.
Yeah. I mean, like, how he got to where he did, he shouldn't be in a position where he is. So I am concerned with the Supreme Court in terms of the partisanship that they're willing to bend and do for the president. I would like to see Roberts, who on occasion has done a good job and stood up, but I'd like to see that more often. On your day-to-day, it probably does not have that great of an impact, but it will when you are accused. It will when you have a legal issue. It will when you find a family member faced with a situation that you never dreamed of, and then you're going to say, where is that rule of law? When they have a strike force coming after Obama, whether that's real or not, but Pam Bondi's running with it.
Yep.
They could come after you too. Let's not equate this to Nazi Germany. Let's not go too extreme. And I think the left like to vilify the right just as much as the right likes to vilify the left. We have to be reasoned in our words, but it doesn't have to be a concentration camp or a shot in the back of the head in the dark of night or deported somewhere. Well, that's happening, so I shouldn't use that. In the dark of night. It can happen in small bites, and it can be just as impactful, but you got to stand up now. And that's my problem with Mike Lawler, among many things, in terms of our policy and positions on, in general. But you have to show up, even if that means you're not our next congressman. You have to show up. So
what would you do differently than Quiet Mike?
Quiet Mike, silent Mike. Well, I think it should be clear. And I believe this is shared by anybody who's in this field right now in terms of primary, that I'm no wilting flower. But it should also be clear that I have a command of the issues. Am I an expert? I don't like people say they're experts. No, I'm not. Can I be wrong? I can be wrong like anybody else. But I have a command of the issues, and I understand them, and I'm not afraid to go back to them and keep coming and keep coming. Believe me, I've been yelled at judges. I've been attacked by judges. I've had to fight for people who are not the easiest people to fight for, because there are certain principles going back to law that you have to use your voice. When you can use your voice and you could do so in an articulate, compelling way, and you could do so knowing the facts, that's a winning ticket. That's a winning ticket.
Yeah.
So that's what I would be doing. I wouldn't be talking about how, I'm helping with SNAP when I'm not really helping with SNAP. I'm not wasting my time to politicize. He went after Beth about some op-ed she wrote in terms of firearm laws. Beth is right. Whether she said something right or wrong, or you don't like the way she said it, Mike, too bad. The principle is correct. Her principle is correct. She's no wilting flower either. But I think that's what you need to do. You have to be able to have town halls and engage your constituency. You have to be on the ground, and you have to have the courage to stand up to the president. And whether you're Republican to a Republican or Democrat to a Democrat, if it's wrong, it's wrong.
Command of the issues. Obviously, also as a lawyer, you're incredibly well spoken and a really sharp communicator, both in the court and on television, as we see you pretty frequently. You're a straight shooter, and you also are a business owner. I think those are all, I think, differentiating characteristics. Do you agree if you were to enter the field?
Yeah, I took a law firm from scratch, from nothing, and I was very creative and hungry, and I built this into a very successful law firm. I went through the same fears as everyone else during COVID. I thought I was done. I really thought I was done. The courts were closed. People weren't going to get family court, criminal court. Kids weren't in school because I deal with the issues in school that kids face. It was just done, and I fought through and I brought it back. So I've maintained that law firm. I marketed that business. I paid my taxes. I've generated more business, and I've done it on my own. And there's a lot of people, no matter what they're doing, whether whether they're teachers, doctors, lawyers, car salesman, plumber, they're doing the same things. So I have that ability. I also think one of the things that differentiates me is because I'm a trial attorney, you have to be ready to respond, because in that courtroom, that judge is the rule of law. And he or she may not like what you have to say, may not like your client, for that matter, may not like you. You have to be able to respond on the fly and be ready to go. And a little humorous here, but I was on CNN a couple of days ago, and I try to do my homework, make sure I know when to get a command of those issues, to talk about Lisa Cook and the Fed, to talk about the death penalty as proposed by Donald Trump. And mind you, in case you don't know, he cannot do that. And even if he could, when there's a federal death penalty, even after the unanimous jury says, yes, we are going to say this person is guilty of murder, that same jury has to have that unanimous decision to say, we are going to say the death penalty is appropriate. So just because you can doesn't mean it will actually happen, but he can't. But I was walking into that interview, and all of a sudden they say, change of plans. We're talking about Swiftie, as in
Taylor Swift,
and Travis Kelce, and maybe a prenuptial. I'm not even a matrimony attorney. So, I have it on my YouTube page, and I shared it on Facebook and a little piece on Instagram. But you have to be prepared and ready to go and formulate a responsible, reasonable words and argument as to whatever issue you're confronted with. You don't want to make believe as you go, or lie or fabricate. But you have to do that and be ready. And that's what I did. And I think it went well.
Good. And God bless whoever wants to get married to someone they love out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And only in that world, by the way, to someone who has $70+ million, are they the ones who are the losers if there's a divorce? But they have to, like, we should all be so lucky, not to get a divorce, but to have those kind of financial prenup issues.
What is also interesting about your potential candidacy is you do come kind of like, I think a lot of folks are kind of building up their national presence and visibility. You'd be coming to the race with some national visibility, being on television and speaking to so many of these issues as frequently as you do. Would you see that as being an asset in this race?
Absolutely. And there's two values to that. Number one, I do have relationships with a lot of anchors, not to overstate that relationship, but they know when I'm going to walk in there, I'm going to be honest and do the job they're asking me to do and do it well. Does that mean that they're going to cover or do something for me? Absolutely not. But I am a person that they know. I'm a known item. But number two, there's also speaking in that forum is kind of like being in a trial. Like you have to be prepared, and you have to be able to respond on the go. So it's prepared me even more, whereas in a courtroom, I can pause and I could say, let me think about that. And then restate my question. When you're on live TV, or for most people probably under the age of 35, streaming or online because they're not watching the TV anymore, you have to be able to answer on the go. You can't just say, I'm not sure. Let me think about that. Let me pause. You have to be ready. So there's that value. And I'm out there a lot. I'm out there. NBC, ABC, MSNBC, which is changing, CNN, and then locally as well.
So heading into the fall, what should folks be thinking about, both in terms of the race and in terms of your potential candidacy?
I'll start in your order. I think they have to understand what's important to them, meaning even if you don't feel it or see it today, it does not mean it's not impacting you tomorrow. You're not going to care about, what happens. Use this horrific example again. Necessarily, you care for those children and the people who are shot, but you can't wait for it to come home to roost. So you have to make sure that something like the constitutional concealed carry never passes muster and gets out of committee to a House vote, to the Senate, and then on to the president. You have to recognize that even if you can pay for college or you don't have an issue with healthcare, that there's people who don't. And whether it's SNAP and dollars, you have to realize that those dollars are not there for everybody, that other people need them. And merely because you don't does not mean you should lack empathy to help those people. You don't want folks who are going to potentially be deported or have their lives upended because they've done a great job living in this nation, being contributors, paying taxes, doing all sorts of things, being stripped of those rights. You want to make sure that even if you don't have a daughter, that she has a right to choose, or your cousin, or your niece, whatever it may be. You have to think not just you, not what it may do to your wallet right now because the market is up, but what it's doing for everybody. On top of that, in terms of me, every candidate here is a good candidate, and any candidate who is going to ultimately win this out deserves your consideration, and I would say your vote. I am personally ready to, I am beyond capable. I have a command of the issues. There is nobody, I believe, that Lawler wants to see less in this dogfight than me. I have the ability to raise the dollars, unquestionably so. I have the network that is vast in terms of in terms of my time serving locally in government and being involved, in terms of being a former Manhattan prosecutor, which is an enormous network. I can get it done. There's no asterisk. I would say, though, that like everyone else, despite what I'm just saying about putting other people first, there are immediate practical realities for me that I need to deal with. And I'm giving myself that deadline of realistically early October. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to my family. Frankly, not that anyone's losing sleep in terms of other candidates. It's not fair to the other candidates. Let's let them do their job and push the states forward. Let's get Mike Lawler out.
Amen. And I agree with all of that. And Jeremy, I so appreciate you coming on, and hopefully in early October, one way or the other, I'd love to have one more conversation.
I'd happily have another conversation, whether it's me or someone else. We will chat again.
Okay, sounds good, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jeremy, it's always wonderful to talk to him, to talk about his experience and what he brings to the table, either within the race or from the outside of the race. And we will hopefully chat with him again come October. In the meantime, this is our second unexpected round of interviews with all of our New York 17 candidates. Jessica Reinman will be closing us up on Saturday, September 6th. We're taking Labor Day off, and you should too. Enjoy it. Soak it up. I don't know about you, but the Hudson Valley already feels like fall. I'm feeling kind of excited, but also a little bit sad that summer is coming to an end. Soak it up with those that you care about. Jessica will close us up next Saturday. Please note the earlier time at 9 a.m. And then what happens from here? Well, we'll talk about that soon. We apparently are not quite done yet. So it's great to see you. Everyone, have a wonderful Labor Day. And I can't wait to see you, hopefully sooner or later, in person. Talk soon.